to everything. April put in the chat if you could just drop where you're calling in from. I'm calling in from New Jersey, so East Coast over here. Um, and yeah, and then we'll get started. And again, thank you everyone for coming in. You guys know tonight's conversation is all about staying resilient for late season racing. This time of year can feel a little bit tricky, right? You've been training and racing for months. Your body's been through a lot. And honestly, the body you're working with today, I've had some of this conversation today with Coach K actually, but the body that you're working with today is not the same body that you started the season with. Not that it's a bad thing, not that it's a good thing, right? It's just something that we need to be aware of. And our goal tonight is to give you tools, perspective, and real stories to help you and your athletes, if you're coaching, navigate this part of the season with strength and self-awareness. So, to be honest, we all, I think, know that at this point in the game and throughout the whole entire year, honestly, it takes grit and it can take a lot of grit right now. But the best part for us is that we do get to draw strength from each other's stories. So, with that, I do want to pass it back over to Coach Rich to share a little bit about a story that resonates with him with his grit.
Yeah, and this, this experience for me happened in my first Ironman. And so maybe Caroline, you can relate here a little bit, since this is pretty fresh. My first Ironman was in 2009 on the island of Cozumel, and it was about mile 15, 16 that the first time I started needing to walk started to happen. The stomach's kind of grumbly, you're just exhausted, and I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. Not gonna lie, and so I'm thinking, got 10 more miles of this. I am walking 18-minute miles. So I'm doing the math in my head and I'm like, I am going to be out here for another hour and a half or 2 hours at this rate. And so I'm thinking about this like task ahead of, oh my gosh, 2 more hours of this, really? And then something flipped and I'm like, wait a minute. How long have I been training for this? I registered for this race over a year ago. And I started training before that, but like training seriously for this. I hired a coach. I've been working at this goal. Thinking about those really long rides I took, all of that time, all of those sacrifices. And I'm like, it has been years in the making to get to this point. I'm like, wait a minute, 2 hours left. That's all I have left of this very first Ironman experience. And all of a sudden, I almost wanted to cry because I was just like so like just like the mindset shifted to like, no, I only have 2 more precious hours left. And so whether it's on the scale of a really hard race, or whether it's a sprint or an Ironman or an ultra marathon, or you're just talking about the race of this year. You're working, we're at mile 15 on the Ironman course. If you think about the year, if this year was 140.6 days, right? We're sitting there at about, 10 miles from the finish line here as we think about our season. And so for me, you know, flipping it on its head and thinking, oh man, there's just precious time ahead of me. It's precious. And sometimes that just, makes you just think a little bit more positively and about it. So anyway, I just want to share that story with y'all, and hope it meant something to somebody.
It meant a lot to me. I've been like loving on Rich for this story for the last week. So
Well, thank you.
April, what about you?
Well, I had something happen literally at my last race of the season, which was the Banana Belt. And this was the first long distance mountain bike race I'd done. So I was going into, like Rich, uncharted territory. And I started out really great. And by the last third of the race, I had pretty much had enough. it was also about hour 5 or 6, or about hour 5. Um, and for a mountain bike race, that can be tough because you have to stay focused from start to finish so you don't crash, right? So my mind was fried by that point, and I was just hoping to get done. And I came through, and it was about 3 or 4 miles left, which in mountain bike terms, that's probably about 20 miles left. um, and I came through, and there was a volunteer, and I don't know what possessed him, but he made a comment to me which I didn't expect. He had said, "Oh, you must be the sag wagon bringing everybody in," and I, you know, thought to myself, "Why would you say that?" Because obviously he was commenting on the fact that I was one of the last people, right? So I wanted to be vulnerable here because not everybody's first. A lot of people that do triathlon are back of the packers, and for me, it was just kind of like this. Oh man, that really hurt, and I started crying, and just kind of lost it for the last couple minutes there, and it was hard for me to turn my mind back to no, I got to finish this sucker. But what happened after that was the last probably 15 minutes of the ride was the best part of the ride. It was this flow state that I got into that honestly felt like I was flying. And if you've done anything like this where you are just rocketing um, down and kind of coming off of different jumps and just these it was almost like I had tunnel vision as far as like how tuned in I was, and that changed everything. And even though this comment had been said and I was one of the last people to finish and there was nobody at the finishing line after I was done, it felt like, oh my gosh, mission accomplished. You turned this around. You didn't come in with tears in your eyes. If anything, it was pure joy. And that felt like grit to me. That felt like I could have stayed in the poopy pants mentality if I, let it take me on. But um, I felt like I was able to overcome that.
Thanks for sharing. That's great. I mean, that's what a resilient story.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, April. I'm like, that gives me like all the feels hearing you share that story. So, and it's a reminder. I'm also going to share my screen because I realized I forgot to share my screen. I'll share my screen now too, guys. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Are you okay? We're good.
We
Is
got you.
okay. I was like that. I thought I just like showed like my whole entire like everything that was going on my screen. And you guys would have been like, geez, Lauren, clean up. All right. But real quick, just to comment, April, on the story that you shared, it's like it's just that reminder also that like grit, no matter how you I mean, I guess it matters how you start and finish to some degree, but really like grit is grit. And
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that the people that are, you know, getting podiums, those are the ones with grit. It's like every single person has their story and their race. And again, whether it's life or in racing, like grit, I'll roll into, for me, what kind of grit means for me is just, being able to dig deep when every ounce of your being is asking you why.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
choosing to do the hard things. Sometimes we have to do the things we hate while acting like we love it. And I love triathlon for this. I say it often that it's a mirror to life and it builds strength and character that we all have inside of us, but we need the grit to pull it out. And sometimes it's freaking hard. So I shared this with Coach Rich and Coach April the other day that I really did not want to do my swim earlier in the week, or maybe it was last week at this point. And I said that I said, man, stepping into the pool, it felt like I was punching a bruise. Like it just felt like uncomfortable. And it wasn't literally, it was my body was perfectly fine. It was like a mental bruise that I had to break through. It was my fatigue. And it was my own BS, right?
Mm.
Uh, I'm going to share one other metaphor that kind of came up this week when I did the live talking about this webinar is that it almost feels like when you really have to go to the bathroom and you're driving and you're getting close to the house, and all of a sudden, the closer you get, the more you're like, oh my God, I really have to go to the bathroom. And it's like right now, it's like the race is coming up, and I really like I could feel it coming, and I'm like my everything in my body is like just you're gonna get there. And I get you could probably gather that this is really all mental. And again, Coach K, I'm gonna shout you out again, because another thing we talked about earlier today is that it's really about the 9 inches above your neck that can be the limiting factor. So, and also that at this point in the season, you want to be stronger mentally than the people who are starting to give up and giving into the mental side, and not choosing grit and choosing to move forward. So I'd love to hear in the chat, if you have a metaphor, or if you want to come off mute, because we have a nice group here. Either share your metaphor for late season racing or your biggest win from 2025. And it's hard for me to see the chat, so I'm going to leave that to Coach Rich or Coach April.
We're watching the chat here. I'll, throw, I guess my metaphor is just, the battery is drained. I just feel like the battery is drained and it is brittle. I just, the battery that doesn't just take a charge anymore, the iPhone that doesn't take a charge anymore, I kind of feel like that.
Yeah, it's corrosive now at that point.
Anyone else want to? What did I do here? Did I?
Good.
Oh, okay.
You're
Oh,
good.
sorry. You know what? I'm
Watching
trying
the chat.
okay, we're good.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can keep going if no one
Okay.
if
Oh, wait.
no one
Sorry,
has
I'm
one.
trying to see what's going on, but I'll just leave that to you guys. All right. So we're gonna move forward from here, and talk about revisiting your why. So now is the time to get crystal clear on your why and the power of your why. So ask yourself, why do you race? Right. And that's like the most surface level question that you can ask. But when you really, really want to understand your why and peel back the layers, you really want to keep on asking again and again. Because you don't want to do it to overthink it. You want to do it again to get crystal clear on what's driving you underneath the surface. So it's not the I want a PR, it's not I want to qualify. There's always something deeper, and you really want to get to the root of what is driving you right now. Is it identity, family, mental growth, proving something to yourself? You want to find something that gets you on your bike, it gets you to the gym, it gets you to the start line when motivation starts to fade. Because when you're connected to that deeper why, like the setbacks, the feeling of like failure. I mean, I know for our tried out athletes, if you're looking at your session XP score and it's like not 100, and it starts getting frustrating, all those little things start to feel like they're wearing on you. So you want to make sure that you're really getting to the root of why you're doing this. I want everyone to do this practice, but I'm going to see if anybody would be willing to come off mute, and join me. Let me actually move this here, with pulling back the layers on their why for racing. And also, if I mean, I know Laura and Sasha both have races late in the season. If either of you are up for kind of going through this practice of really digging deep on your why.
I'll do it.
All right.
Out of my comfort zone, but I'll do it. Whys. There's always so many whys, and I think the more I do this, the more whys I find. I think originally it was finding a worth, and is that what we're doing? Am I supposed to say? That's what I got at it. Okay.
Tell me.
So, yeah, originally it was to find my worth, to find something other than being a mom and other being a wife and all the things that go along with raising kids and families and everything like that. And you sometimes, I don't know, you forget who you are inside. I've always been super competitive in everything I do. So it was finding a niche that I could have an outlet for it. Um, and then finding strength. I mean, the more I get into it, the more strength I'm finding mentally, physically. Um, it's really cool, actually. I mean, I keep on going further and further. Like, I want to throw in a towel sometimes, and then I'm like, I find another strength and another strength, and so that really pushes me. I really like being competitive, and I really like being allowed to have something that shows myself. So those are a lot of my whys. My daughter is a huge why. My husband, he's been there beside me, and I think showing him all the sacrifices he's had to make is worth it. You know what I mean? Because of how happy I am, how much better of a person I am. Um, I guess they just keep building upon themselves. The more I go, and the more at this next race, I'm sure I'll find another why.
Yeah, I love it. And
Yeah.
that's the point of even the practice. Like you've almost like done the work already of getting so crystal clear on it. So when your why becomes more powerful than just a result, right?
Mhm.
Like because I love how you said even like with, being a mom and having something like for yourself and the strength that you get from it. I always say, my like surface level why is because yeah, because I want to qualify. I mean, like right, like I always have those surface level whys, and then when you start to peel it back, it's like, well, why? Because I want to prove to myself how strong I am. Why? And then you start to really dig and think back to like, well, were there times that you didn't feel that strong? Were there times that you felt out of
Mhm.
control? And like for me, it gives me a sense of control. And so I encourage everyone, I want to be mindful of the time that after this call tonight before your next race, especially if you're late season racing, Laura, we can do this on Thursday. It's really just pulling back the layers, and when you ask why, you have to keep asking multiple times why to that, and just really get crystal clear. Thank you, Sasha.
Yeah.
Mind, Coach Lauren, if I just ask a question real quick, a little follow up to this. Sometimes when you put something in writing, the intention doesn't come through. And so I had posed a question to Caroline and Coach K. Did they ever ask themselves, why am I doing this weekend in the middle of their race? And what I meant by that is exactly what Lauren just said. When you're racing, being able to tie back to your why. And, Coach K, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. You said you were in Kaizen. Uh, but why were you in Kaizen? If when you get in touch with your purpose for being out there, like what's driving you, that is a great thing to just have with you as your co-pilot while you're out there on the race. And for Coach K, it's your Kaizen, right? But knowing what it is for you
Hmm.
is really important to have that as your co-pilot when you're out there racing. Right there, your buddy right there while you're swimming, while you're biking, while you're running. So anyway, just want to throw that out there. Coach K, anything you want to? I mean, I don't know. Can you mind explaining what your Kaizen is?
Yeah, I think it's, every opportunity you have a chance to strive for continuous improvement. I mean, it really comes down to that. And I think for me, maybe because, my upbringing or lack of kind of a function at home. So in other words, I was in a dysfunctional home. I'm like, wait a minute. I had a chance to go to Nice, France, so I don't need to feel sorry for myself and pick lint out of my navel. And I got to go to Kona to train three athletes or prepare them for the World Championship. Now I'm in Ironman California with Rich and the whole team there. To me, that's like, how cool is that? That I get to play all day long and get out there and take all that fresh air in, but it's also trying to master the course. I think we learned a lot from Lucy and Taylor. You definitely are, maybe to a certain extent, racing or not, but it's you and the course. And I think if you can finish that and finish it well and achieve proficiency and mastery, that's the ultimate. And it was kind of surreal at the finish line. Peter Defty was there. He goes, wait a minute, you just look so relaxed. He said, how could you have just done a full Ironman and you're just sitting there talking to me? And I'm like, well, I wasn't in a prize fight. I wasn't in there with Stallone. I wouldn't get beat up. It's just a swim, bike, run. But when you're there, you're there. And I think it's that ability to shift your mind to that, again, as we talk about being in the zone. And I think, as we know in life, we don't like it. But when you go through harshness, it really develops your grit factor. So I just know that that's your go-to at all times. And I think for me, I didn't have to go there too often. It was just a day it kind of flowed. So you just don't know. There's days where you pay a big price. There's other days where you're kind of in the middle. And there's other days where it kind of comes together. And I'm just so grateful that for me, it worked out really, really well. So that's what I would say. And the only way you get better and get more gritty is you've got to get out there in the arena. You've got to smell the dirt, eat the dirt, and just stick with it and hear seals in the background.
Thanks, Coach K. Appreciate that. Eat the dirt.
The dirt. And when it comes to like your why, also like write it down, have it somewhere where you can see it all the time, whether it's on your water bottle, on your, I don't know, if you want to ride on your bike, don't ride on your bike, but wherever you want it to be. I always on race day, like part of my why is because I love that my niece and nephews get to see what I'm doing and that's like inspiration to them. So I paint my nails the colors of their favorite colors. So every time I'm racing, I look down and I think about them at different parts of the race. So whatever gets you through having your why. The other thing that I wanted to touch upon when it comes to the mental side, because again, like we started at the beginning where physically you're there, right? You've done the work. It's a lot at this point, a mental game, and just a little bit about future self visualization. So just picturing with full clarity yourself on race day. So this obviously you guys can see on the screen with the steps to do it. But I wanted to share, is anybody here familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza? Okay, so Dr. Joe Dispenza he has a book called You Are the Placebo, and it's a lot about visualization and the power of the mind. And he shares in the book about, he talks about, if you were on the 10th floor in a hotel room and you were really visualizing a shark attack, and like you could have your nervous system and your hormones, like your stress levels increase because every time you relive an experience in your brain, your body doesn't know the difference. So if you are like if you're constantly reliving a bad experience, your body, your nervous system is responding. If you're constantly trying to relive a positive experience and go through the feelings, your body's going to relive that experience. So the goal is that in these moments to practice visualization. So, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. Find a quiet spot, start to focus on your breath, box breathing, right? Where you might inhale for 4, pause for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4. And then really take the time here to like visualize race day, right? Picture that it's race morning. Think about how the air is going to feel. Think about your bike set up in transition, hearing the other athletes behind you. Maybe you're doing whatever it is that you do to kind of set yourself right. I like to do some like meditation and mobility work by my bike. Move through the different legs of the race, maybe visualize things that are going to go on that maybe you can't find your bike in transition and you calm yourself down. Maybe you get kicked in the water. Like visualize the things that can happen, but also how you overcome them. And when you're in your flow, like Coach April was saying, and then visualize yourself crossing the finish line. I mean, I could probably visualize enough and like make myself cry thinking about the feeling of crossing the finish line at, the races I've done and feel that. Think about what emotions come up. Is it pride? Is it relief? Is it gratitude? And then in that moment, connect with your why. Think about when you cross that finish line, like why you do what you do, right? I feel strong. I'm a positive role model for my family. I'm stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. I deserve this. I'm worthy of this accomplishment. I've inspired people. Like connect with whatever it is, right? And then let the feelings, let the words come up. Don't overthink it. And in that moment, oops, didn't mean to hit that button. In that moment, like write down then what you're thinking, how you're feeling, jot down a few, sentences that might anchor that emotion and your deeper reason for showing up and pushing through. So again, maybe it's to prove to yourself that you can stay consistent even when it's hard. You want to celebrate how far you've come this year. You want to feel powerful and grateful in your body. Whatever it is, like that's your fuel. And over the next couple weeks, whatever you have left until you wrap up 2025, when training feels heavy, when motivation's dipping, revisit the visualization, reconnect to your future self, the one who's already finished, the one who's done the work, the one who's celebrating everything that you've accomplished. So my challenge to you all is going to be that, write your why, put it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror, put it on a wall, wherever you can put it, and return to that as you make your way through the season. So mentally, y'all got this. And from here, I'm going to pass the mic over to Coach Rich.
Awesome. Love that, Coach Lauren. That was fantastic. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to keep us going here because I want to keep an eye on time, and we've plenty more to get to. It's navigating your training at this point in the season, and let's just kind of say, let's even use Sasha as an example here because she's still Sasha and Lauren both have races. They're going to Marbella. Depending on when you started your season, you've been at this for a while. And when you're kind of early in the season, the gains come back pretty quick. As you get later in the season, the gains, the increase in, FTP and, threshold pace and, threshold swim times, trying to bump a dot late in the season gets a little, it's harder to push at this point. And and a lot of this is you're also that body battery has been coming down, right? And then charging overnight and going down. You kind of do that little bit of a recharge every night. And then, every day it's been kind of just overall trending toward draining. And so now you've got this kind of accumulated fatigue that's, kind of happened over the season. The training's becoming less productive. And now you're kind of putting yourself in a position of like, if you push the boundary, because you've got this kind of, a narrower band of kind of like how much stress and recovery you can get back from that. You got to be really careful about that, that potential for injury and the risk of that. And you'll probably also feel, it's really easy to start to feel, just like Coach April said, or Coach Lauren said, feeling like you're going to get punched in the bruise, that, that mental burnout, right? You're just kind of like, I cannot get in the pool today. This is a great thing when, to talk to your coach about if you're having any of those symptoms, or talk to a friend about if you're having any of those symptoms. Get another perspective, ideally from a coach, or from a colleague. Talk it through. Listen, the it's not how much training you can do; it's how much training you can absorb. So you got to let the body repair itself, adapt, and strengthen during that recovery, and not under constant load. I do see this with some athletes, right? They're perfectionists, right? They want to get a 100, and if they get 101 on a Train X score, they would do that, and they want that every time, and they want the the extra workouts in there too, and you know you're better off being 10% undertrained than 5% overtrained. If you go into a big race, and I, witnessed this a little bit yesterday, because I know one of the athletes I work with, he's one of these, I would never do a train X shoot off with this guy. He would beat me for sure. Um, but I think that comes at a cost of, there's just, built up fatigue and the reserves aren't there. And he had a moment where, it took a little bit for him to get his pep back. Um, so listen to your body, talk to your coach, use recovery really as a strategic tool this time of year. It's important all year around, but now more than ever, especially when you're kind of in the last 10 miles of the, in this metaphorical race this year. And, do smart, reductions in terms of deloading and active rest, right? You can do more of that at this time of the season. You're probably not going to, you got a nice fitness base. So you don't need to do too much. Anyway, I'm going to wrap with that. Signs that you might, need some recovery, or that you're past your recovery threshold. Watch your resting heart rate. If you see that getting elevated, or you see your heart rate variability coming outside of the normal range, track your heart rate variability. If you see that getting too low, that is also a very good sign. Aches, persistent soreness, you got a brand new pair of shoes and you're having some Achilles problems. Okay, well, maybe it's time to do a little bit of back off, or do a little bit more recovery, or potentially even get some treatment. And then if you start to see yourself plateauing or regressing, that could also be a great sign that you're past that recovery threshold. I'm open to questions if anybody wants to throw one out there. We can keep rolling. Let's keep rolling. And hit one more thing here real quick. So at this time of the season, I kind of like to shift my mindset. Like for the beginning of the season, it's all about, I am in development phase. How fast can I get back, to my fitness? Here, I've got a recovery first mindset. So late season adaptation is a little bit more subtle. So think tapering, small improvements, refining your efficiency, and not chasing large new gains. Gains come from improving marginal deficits right now. So just, look at things like technique, recovery, sleep, nutrition, rather than trying to pile on more training. And then I just said this in the previous slide, just well-timed deloading and recovery blocks, especially if you're starting to feel overtrained. How to recover, just talked about monitoring some of those key metrics. Watch your fatigue. Look at your sleep score too. Track your sleep. I often do. I mean, boy, Caroline probably is listening, rolling her eyes, listening to this because of the things that, oh yeah. How many times has he asked me this? Yeah, looking at like what was your average sleep over the last week? What has it been the last month? If you're not getting 8+, you're not getting enough as an endurance athlete. Incorporate that active recovery, easy move. Another athlete recently, complaining about a little bit of a niggle that he's having. Right. All right, let's take off those runs for the next couple of days, and let's just do movement, mobility, some cross training, do some yoga, all great stuff to get back. And better to do that than to keep pushing. Talked about emphasizing sleep, also your nutrition and hydration. Again, just, the body is a biological thing. It needs all three of these things for it to function properly. These are the pillars. And then use all sorts, find the modalities that work for you, but foam rolling is a great thing. Massage are great to get the tissue hydrated, getting it loose, getting it functional again. Compression, obviously, for, making sure that you've got good circulation, especially after a race, wearing those calf sleeves. And as Coach April, she's probably sitting in them right now. We can't tell, in her Normatec boots, something like that to help your recovery. And then, of course, maintain communication with your coach. If anything feels off, definitely let them know. So put it in a text. It's all good. All right, I'm going to pass this over to Coach April.
Coach Rich, that was excellent. You actually hit on a really great point that leads us into our last bit here, which is talking about not doing all the things that distract us from the most important things. So I wanted to bring this home with a little bit of a reality check, because the brain loves to do all these distractions with, I got to do this, this, and this. I got to take care of this and this and this, and before the end of race season, right? Well, we want to bring it down to the one thing. So if I looked at your training routine right now, could I tell what your one thing is? The thing that matters most to your late season racing? Go ahead and put a yes or no in the chat. If I looked at your training routine right now, could I tell what your one thing is? Coach K, yes. Lauren, yes. Excellent. There's got to be a couple no's in here, because I know we don't all have our stuff squared away. Maybe. Yep. No. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Great. This is the point here, right? We are in the home stretch, and we want to make sure that we are bringing it in as much as we can. Coach Lauren made an excellent point earlier about we're not the same body that we were when we started the season. We're drained quite literally with the amount of stress that we put into getting to the peak of our season. And that's a part of the journey. We're not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but we want to make sure that we can hold on to and maintain and have everything that we need to get us across that finish line to the best of our ability. So go on to the next slide, please. How we do that is making sure that we know what to listen to, right? We probably have 1,000 things screaming at us. And this point is from the book, The One Thing, which I highly recommend everyone reads. It applies to all the circles of life. And there's a great quote in the book from author Gary Keller, who said, "The things which matter, or the things which are most important, don't always scream the loudest." So if you don't know what the thing is that is most important, it might be a small whisper saying, hey, I need more sleep. I need more energy. I need whole food. I need this, but you might not hear it until it's too late. So what we want to do is make sure that you can whittle down the thing that does matter, the thing that for you, which is very individual, right? I could have one thing that doesn't necessarily apply to Rich, that doesn't necessarily apply to Lauren, but it applies to me in what I need to get me to my next milestone, right? So we're going to talk about a tool. It's one of my favorite tools. It's actually something that I use on a daily basis, because with the amount of crap that flies through, right? It can be easy to get caught up in the to-do list. How many people, raise your hand, do you love a to-do list? Like, it's almost like, man, if I feel like I'm off kilter, what do? Make a to-do list. Well, I want to challenge that a little bit, because what happens with the to-do list is we have this brain dump. A lot of times we have all these things that feel like they matter equally. Like, I have to do this, this, and this. And if I don't get this done, my whole world crumbles. The big thing that I want to point out is that that's not true. It's a lie. Everything does not matter equally, right? So when we have a to-do list, it's not prioritized. It's usually just a list. And what happens most often than not is we take care of the first thing that's on there. And sometimes we try to get those small wins, right? So we might take care of the low-hanging fruit. But are those really the things that are going to drive the needle forward? Is that the 20% task that's going to create 80% of the results? So this activity is something that we want you to, yes, put into practice so you can get rid of that frog, take care of that hard thing, so everything else is easy peasy. So that 20% task, but how do you do that? First, you do need to write down what you are looking to accomplish, but you don't stop there. What you're going to do is look through that list. And I don't know if folks have heard of the Pareto principle, but that is basically the 80-20 rule, right? What's a 20% task? So if I could do all these things, now I'm going to circle, what should I do? Should I take that 30-minute compression boot time because I did a pretty hard run today and my legs are screaming. Yeah, that's the whisper, if you will. Or should I do the dishes? Maybe. I'm just throwing a weird item out, you know. We do the dishes around here, I promise. Anyway, it's the things that if we took all the other things away, still matter, right? So you have to identify that. And then what I want you to do is take them out of your to-do list, create what's called a success list. And from there, you're going to rank them. Now, you should not have more than 4 things. And if you want to get real extreme, I want you to get it down to 1 thing, right? So what's the 1 thing that I could do such that by doing it, everything else would become easier or unnecessary? And for folks right now, sleep is a huge one. And I don't know if you can tell, I got a little bit of a cold. I have been dealing with that, and sleep has been the most imperative for getting over that because of the healing property of sleep, right? So for me, that's the number 1 thing, is making sure that I'm getting quality sleep. And all of the tasks that are surrounding that fall into line, right? That help with habit stacking to the point of success. So you don't want to get trapped in that checkoff game. This is not a green box. We are all overachievers. I know that. We look for the XP points. We look for the check mark. What you want to figure out is, what is that most important thing that if you spent time on that would give you the biggest return on your results. This also gives you the ability to say no. If you've got this big goal, right? I know for Sasha, this is a huge goal with World Championships. If she knows that that is the 1 thing that she's focusing on, right? Saying no to that party, saying no to that late night out, saying no to that stressful work event could be the difference maker between her and her performance. So having the ability to have that strong why and coupling that with the ability to focus on what you need to be doing to get you to that result. That's what's going to make the difference between finishing this season strong or just petering out at the end and not seeing where you've worked this hard to get to this point. So next slide. My final question for you is, what's the 1 thing I can focus on right now, whether it's training, recovery, or my mindset, that would make the biggest difference in how I finish this season? So I want you to think about that for the next minute. And then if you would like to share in the chat, I would love to hear from you.
People are incubating their ideas to put in the chat. April, I wanted to tell you that what I really loved about that previous slide is how you tied the should do's directly to the success you're trying to achieve, right? It wasn't a should do because somebody expects it of you. It's a should do because it aligns to that success outcome that you're trying to get.
Yes, it's what we're spending all of our money on, our time, our focus, our energy. It should have the number 1 priority. If that's what we're saying matters to us, right? We need to put our money where our mouth is. So I love that you connected that as well, Rich. I see in the chat training and mindset. Caroline, minders. I like that. I'm not sure what that is. Do you mind sharing?
Driving, so I'm not sure.
Mindery. Okay, I like it.
Mindery.
That's great. Okay. I'm going to, recovery plus mindset. That's perfect. I'm going to bring it out with Laura here a little bit. Would you feel like your training or your mindset takes the number 1? Because we want to focus on 1 thing, right?
Oh,
What would you say?
I'd say probably the training.
Training? Okay. And what's 1 thing that you could do that would make everything else easier for you regarding your training?
Okay, well, I already take my sleep very seriously, so I feel
Excellent.
that I feel that's good, at least on my end, which I feel very lucky. Hmm. That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like my situation is maybe a little bit unique because I was traveling for like a month and I didn't have access to a bike. And so like
Oh.
Lauren is my coach, and so we're working a lot on like cycling. And so that's like where a lot of my mindset and training is in right now.
Mm.
So I would probably say maybe I'll switch it actually to mindset with like keep going with like the longer cycling sessions.
Yeah, I would encourage you to explore that a little bit more and with Coach
You can
Lauren.
tell I don't have it
Yeah.
fully formed yet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
Sounds
that's
good.
an excellent example of really digging in, right? The why, figuring out, okay, why does this matter to me? Why would mindset for me make a difference here?
Mhm.
So love that. I absolutely appreciate that. All right, y'all. I just want to leave this as your takeaway for tonight. I want you to think about this too. What is something in your current routine that might not be serving your race goals? So we're talking about focusing on one thing. That could also be breaking one thing. You might be, whether you're conscious of it or not, what is the thing that could be preventing you from reaching that next level? So there's a little twist there too, is the understanding that we uh, we need to have awareness around our what we're choosing to do, right? These are all choices that we're making. So thank you so much for giving me your time on that. And I'm gonna open it up to our team and open it up for Q&A. I know we're at it at the hour, but want to give you all that.
Would just like to give there are two more comments here, actually three more comments I just wanted to call out. Kathy
Excellent.
Calusa's Coach Kathy said all of the above. Sasha, I think trusting in my training, knowing that I did everything I could do to reach my goals. Love that.
Mm, mm.
And then Coach K, recovery and mindset is like peanut butter and jelly. Yeah. Love that.
Perfect.
Great. We can't come up with a better metaphor than that.
That's perfect.
Right, Jay? Right, Jay?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was
Jelly?
thinking about peanut butter. I was
Oh,
thinking like smooth versus crunchy. Those are the little differences. Sorry.
you're
I
jelly or
get
peanut
I
butter?
get sidetracked with peanut butter. It's my favorite thing. Sorry. Thanks, PB.
Awesome. Folks, thank you very much for being here. We'll hang out here if anybody wants to chat with us. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening. We're so glad that you were able to be here with us.
Thank you everyone for showing up.
Thank you, Coach K.
Yeah, it's
You.
great. Love everyone's contributions. My goodness.
Yeah.